Hello friends, I am Michael Kingswood. I write fiction for fun and profit, and this is Storytime. Storytime is where I share stories that I wrote that you're going to like so that you can have fun and enjoy them, and maybe then go check out other things that I've written. So on Tuesdays here, we are sharing chapters, one chapter each week from my first book in my heroic fantasy series, which is called The Glimmer Vale Chronicles, and the first book is called Glimmer Vale. Imagine that, right? And so I actually missed last week because I was busy doing stuff, so we're going to do two this week. I'm going to split it up into two videos, though, just because that's how we always do it. First one is going to be this one, chapter 18, called Skulking, and we'll put out chapter 19 in the next video. So sit back, enjoy this one, and have fun.
Chapter 18 Skulking. As Raedric expected, the 20 horses had indeed cut up the ground fairly well. He found it hard to believe that Eisenholf, he could not bring himself to call the criminal by his assumed name, neglected to think about that. So he halfway expected to find the rearguard lying in wait somewhere on the trail. But when he and Salam reached the East Flow Ford without incident, Raedric began to rethink his assumption. Maybe Eisenholf had not thought about the trail he left. Or worse, maybe he simply did not care. He had not bothered to hide his contempt, even of his former comrades in arms. He had always been cocky, but not sloppy. He must be very sure that his advantage is unassailable, Raedric said to himself. Or he's just an ass, Salam offered. Raedric blinked in surprise. He had not realized he spoke loudly enough to be heard. He shook his head and chuckled softly before replying, Always has been. Salam chuckled as well, and the two men exchanged grins. They had opted against horses for the pursuit. For one thing, riders were easier to spot, and this night's excursion required stealth. For another thing, Salam did not own one. And Raedric did not feel right about loaning out Julian's without asking. So instead, they had taken a few minutes to retrieve warm cloaks from their rooms and wading boots from the fishing company's warehouse, then set out after the brigands as twilight was beginning to settle over the vale. Even with the wading boots, crossing the ford was uncomfortably frigid. Raedric shuddered in sympathy for the horses who had to cross it and made a mental note to get a few extra cubes of sugar for his mare. She had earned it crossing this 3 times in the last few days. It was full dark when they emerged from the ford and discarded their wading boots behind an outbuilding at the burned farm. It's going to be tough following even this trail in the dark, you know, Salam noted. I know. The moon should be up soon, that'll help. Raedric glanced to the west toward where he expected the nearly full moon to rise, and was gratified to see a faint glow on the horizon beyond the mountains. Any minute now. Salam was right. Even after the moon rose above the mountains, it was slow going. It helped to have some notion as to where the trail would lead, and sure enough, at around the same place the prisoner had turned southeast the other day, this large group made the same turn. At least this was not just a ploy. As before, the riders moved into the hills, climbing the first several and then descending into the small valleys between them. After doing that several times, Raedric was beginning to become irritated. How did he and Julian lose that guy the other day if he had gone on like this? The question answered itself a moment later. As they descended the back of yet another hill, the trail abruptly turned to the left, heading due east down the center of the valley between 2 hills. The valley continued a fair distance, slowly veering back to the south. About 1/4 of a mile further on, as the curve of the valley brought the first hill out of sight, the hill to the left became rougher, more boulder-strewn. Then suddenly a cleft in the hillside came into view, a narrow chasm between adjoining hillsides that stretched east and slowly rose higher into the hills. I've never heard of a formation like that in this part of the Vale, Salam said, sounding and looking surprised. There hasn't been a farmstead in a while. How often do people come out this way? The fishing man shrugged. Not too often that I know of, but then I don't know all the ins and outs around here. Raedric looked sidelong at him. I didn't think you grew up here. What gave me away? There don't seem to be very many trained swordsmen in this town. Raedric chuckled and added, And you drop your R's. Folks from here don't do that. Salam frowned as he looked away from Raedric and back towards the chasm. Even with that moon, it will be hard to see anything in there. Ignoring the change in topic, Raedric glanced up at the moon, now almost directly overhead. We won't get any better light until morning. Might as well get moving. I know. Just saying. Sure enough, it was extremely dark within the chasm. The passage was narrow, maybe 2 people could ride side by side, but it would be uncomfortable. Also, it looked as though the walls of the chasm actually narrowed toward the top. That all resulted in very little light making it down to the floor where Raedric and Salam walked. Fortunately, the floor of the chasm was smooth and devoid of loose rocks. No doubt the brigands had cleared it out to make for easier passage. All the same, both men stumbled on occasion, and their progress was very slow. At one point, Raedric looked back and was surprised to see that they had ascended 100 feet or more. Glancing upwards, it did not look as though the chasm walls were much lower than they had been before. That meant the hills the chasm cut through were large indeed. He racked his brain, trying to recall seeing any hills high enough to conceal a feature like this when he and Julian had been here in the daylight, and came up lacking. What was going on? The chasm continued to rise for several hundred yards, then abruptly came to an end. One moment, Raedric and Salam were walking in near pitch blackness. The next, they stepped out into a large open area that appeared chiseled out of rock. Or, at least, Raedric surmised it was open. He couldn't see very far ahead, but there were no distinguishing features except behind them. Rather than rolling hills, sheer cliffs, a couple 100 feet tall, rose on either side of the chasm, and stretched out in either direction as far as Raedric could see in the gloom. Raedric blinked. It was only marginally less dark here than it had been in the chasm. Confused, he looked up to find the moon, and saw only darkness, along with what looked like a smoky mist not far above the tops of the cliffs. There was not even a hint that the moon was in the sky. Where is that light coming from? I was just wondering that, Raedric replied. Salam was quick on the uptake. He liked that. I'm not sure what's going on here, Salam. Do you want to go back? The fishing man looked at Raedric with offended eyes and shook his head. Haven't found what we came for yet. Raedric grinned. They moved forward, away from the chasm. The rider's trail was no longer visible, but there was no doubt which way they had gone. After a short while, Raedric looked over his shoulder and felt a surge of dread. The cliffs were no longer visible. It was as if reality ended in a dark haze and indeterminate distance behind them. Stop, Salam. The fishing man looked at Raedric in confusion. Then he looked back also, and his eyes widened. For the first time, Raedric saw fear in the man's eyes. He was not sure his own did not show the same thing. They hurried back the way they came. After a moment, the cliffs and the chasm opening suddenly emerged from the gloom. Raedric was surprised at how relieved he felt when that happened. He found himself letting out a breath he had not realized he had been holding. Well, at least we can get back. Salam snorted. We can also get turned around completely without realizing it and lose our way. Raedric pursed his lips. He hadn't thought of that. Eisenhoff's bunch must have a way to safely get back and forth. Maybe we missed something. They went back to the chasm opening and spent several minutes looking carefully around. The cliff walls, the ground, the swirling mist above, nothing escaped their attention. There had to be a way for them to know how to get back. It was Salam who found it, by chance. He stepped back from the cliff face to look at the walls at a different angle. After a moment, he shook his head and threw up his hands. Raedric bit back a curse and turned away. Maybe there was something inside the chasm itself. Raedric! He spun around, his hand going to the grip of his saber. But Salam was alone, squatting down not far from where he had been looking up at the cliffs. He vigorously waved for Raedric to come over. Once he reached Salam's side, Raedric's spirits lifted. Seen from the angle Salam took while squatting, there was a fine silver inlay in the rock floor. It outlined a path about as wide as 4 men walking abreast, which stretched from the chasm exit straight ahead for 20 yards. There it turned abruptly to the right, and stretched away out of sight into the gloom. We weren't going the right way at all, Salam said, a slight quaver in his voice. It's a good thing we turned back when we did. Good job. Raedric stood and found he could still see the path's outline. It was almost as if, having found it once, he was now allowed to see it completely. Allowed by whom was not clear, especially since there was no one else around. But he couldn't shake the feeling that it was designed thus for some reason. Do we go on? Salam sounded a bit less certain, less confident than he had before when Raedric asked that question. Raedric nodded. Haven't found what we came for yet. Salam chuckled.
All right, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, hey, Kingswood, I love that story. How can I buy your books? Great question. Here's the answer. Best way to buy my books is to come over to my site, michaelkingswood.com/store. That will bring you to this place, which is my company's store where you can get books, merchandise, all kinds of great stuff that I've set up. And but you're wondering how it works. Well, here, let's check out Glimmer Chronicles, which is my heroic fantasy series that I've talked a lot about. If you haven't read it yet, you really should. It's a super fun series. Everything you would want. You should start with Glimmer Vale, which is the first book. Come over here to Glimmer Vale. It'll load up. Hey, look at that. You get the book description, links to other books in the series, great stuff. And you can pick the format you want. You got ebook, trade paperback, and audiobook. Not everything I've written is an audiobook yet, but almost everything's a trade paperback and everything's an ebook. But like, hey, I know what you're thinking. Hey, I'm buying from you. How do I get the ebook? There's a service that I work with called Book Funnel. When you buy from my site, they will send you a link. That link will lead you to a page where they will walk you through how to load your ebook onto the device of your choosing, or you can just download it to computer and do whatever you want with it. So that way it's easy peasy. Maximum profit for me, all kinds of fun for you. But I know, a lot of you guys, you like your Kindles, you like your other things, and you want to go straight to the retailer, and that's fine. You can come over here to michaelkingswood.com/books2read, the number 2, and I have this handy dandy universal book link aggregator page set up. You can scroll through, look at all my stories, all my books, and pick which one you want, and then go from there. Here's how it works. Let's do Glimmer Vale again. So Glimmer Vale, first book in the series, you click on it, you get this thing, you get the book description, you get all other books in the series, and you say, get it now. Okay, get it now. Look what happens. Every retailer where you can find it is here. You can pick the one that you like best and say, okay, cool. Well, let's say I wanted to buy it in, I don't know, let's just say Kobo, because why not? Click on it. And then it'll ask you, is this your favorite store? If so, you set it. So every time you come back, you don't have to choose. It'll just go take you to your favorite store. But let's just, you don't have to do that. Well, we're going on to Kobo. Hoo-yah. Hey, look at this. Here it is on the Kobo site. People like it. People have bought it. Good stuff. Links to other things of mine. And, or you can do one of the other stores that you like. Either way, you get the book you like. I get money. It's all good.